Every mistake I made climbing Mount Everest.
Almost 2 years ago now, I climbed Mount Everest, and in 1 month, I will be going
You'll
back
never catch me doing
to
this.
attempt it without the use of supplemental
Nigga,
oxygen. For that reason,
you're above the clouds.
I wanted to check myself by going into every mistake I
Imagine that to you.
made the first time, starting off with the minor technical mistakes and working up to the stuff that was life threatening and I wish I could just slap myself for doing. So, the first of many mistakes I
Nigga, you should slap yourself for going up Mount Everest. The hell?
made while climbing Mount Everest was that I didn't even try to protect my face from the sun. In fact, I did such a bad job. There was one point where I coughed up a scabbed tissue from the inside of my throat. As we all know, even in the safety of your own front lawn, if you stand in the sun for too long, your skin can get very damaged. The difference when you are climbing a mountain such as Everest is there is a lot of this stuff called snow, which is completely white and that reflects the sun's light directly back into your face. When we were moving up from base camp to Camp 2, we had to move through a section called the Western Coombe, and it just so happens to be a nice sunny day. In the Western Coombe, the snow around you creates an oven effect, and you get blasted by reflected light from every direction. And being the ignorant 19-year-old I was, I barely put on any sunscreen, and I did a horrible job covering my face with a buff, because I just thought I was built different, I was just a 19-year-old.
You were 19 on Mount Everest?
21, I
The
think. I still
fuck?
feel the same. Nothing has changed. This, of course, cooked my entire face, and because I was breathing through my mouth, I ended up spitting out some sort of red scabbed skin up higher on the mountain because my throat had gotten sunburnt. The next mistake I made, which was once again due to my inexperience and ignorance, was that I was not optimizing the weight of my gear. When I was climbing Mount Everest, I had this stupid mindset that it doesn't matter how much gear you have or how heavy it is, just carry it up. I would see more experienced climbers trimming down on ounces and grams and being very meticulous about all of their gear, and I would call them weight weenies, when in reality, they were practicing one of the most powerful things you can do to increase your success on the mountain. On many of the days we'd be moving camps, I'd have
I'd never be going up this mountain, bro. Dead ass.
an absolutely monstrous pack filled with things I had brought up that were either non-essential or I could have swapped out for something smaller and lighter. For example, I had this gigantic camera box for my GoPro batteries and GoPro, and it's just way too big and can easily be swapped out for something lighter and compact. The thing is, suboptimal gear like that on its own won't make too much of a difference, but when you have so many of these oversights, ounces turn into pounds, and you're gonna make your climb so much more difficult. One of the ways my partner Justin and I are optimizing weight load this year is by bringing a two-person sleeping bag instead of both bringing our own. Being a weight weenie and being hypercritical
Won't catch me doing that sus ass shit. Not sleeping with another
of
man.
everything going into my pack has allowed for extremely fast and big pushes, such as climbing Ama de Blanc and Mount Rainier in a single day. Now, the third mistake I made while climbing Mount Everest almost caused me to lose some fingers, and I guarantee the older chaps watching this video are going to give me some heat for this one. Before being able to summit, we had to move from Camp 3 to Camp 4, which is a pretty big day, so you have to start ascending before the sun is fully out. Now, of course, I was filming this morning, and that got extremely difficult for me because I was primarily using my iPhone to record, so I often had to go completely barehanded just to be able to operate it. This constant exposure to the cold from taking my glove on and off added up way more than I thought it would, and I think I even might have gotten a little bit of frost nip on my thumb by the end of the expedition, but I'm not entirely sure. Taking your gloves off in an extreme environment is a huge risk, even if it feels fine to just do it once, and this is exactly why I now film with a GoPro attached to a stick, so I can just press a button and then it starts filming. I don't need to take my glove off. Okay, so all of the mistakes I've talked about so far have been small.
Yeah, they ain't nothing that'll cost your life, I don't think. Unless you got too much weight on your back and you fall down the fucking mountain.
Technical errors that were made safely on the lower mountain, but one that could have actually ruined me was going too fast on summit day. On the day of our summit push, we left Camp 4 at around midnight. I was going to be climbing alongside and guided by my good friend Purba Sherpa, who just so happens to have 13 Everest summits. Immediately out of the gate, this guy was hauling, and Purba I am honored that you had so much faith in my ability to keep up with you, but I was dying. We ended up making it from Camp 4 to the summit in around 5 hours, which is an extremely good time. So, why could that have potentially been a bad thing? Well, on Mount Everest Summit Day, you are in the death zone, which is where the body can no longer adapt to the thin air and is where the highest percentage of people die due to their bodies shutting down. While going fast is sometimes beneficial to take advantage of short weather windows, it can also bonk you. And if you run out of energy in a place like the
Bro,
death
you're
zone,
too fucking high up, bro. Yo, Perk. Bro, this shit is too high up, bro. Dead ass.
you are cooked.
That
Knowing
shit
this,
too
for our
high up,
upcoming
my
Everest
nigga.
climb, we plan on
You
going
above
very
the
slowly
clouds.
and prioritize preserving our energy.
What you on today,
even if
bro?
That means we're out
What you up to today, twin? I need to record some shit. I gotta think some shit. I gotta record some shit.
for longer. Alright, so this is where the mistakes start to get a lot more serious and consequential. This next one being that I was not paying attention to the other climbers around me. If you've heard any news about Everest, then one of the things you've probably heard is there are a lot of people there, sometimes inexperienced, like myself. This isn't just a bad thing because it ruins the photos or creates some trash, but it can actually be a major safety concern when there are a lot of people on the same route using the same ropes. While I was descending from the summit and had to get past a rocky section called the Yellow Band, another climber just decided it was okay to throw himself down it at the same exact time as me. At this moment, I should have totally just stood my ground and told him off, but I didn't. I stood there and took it. So as he was coming down, he just bumped into me and almost stabs me with his crampon. The lesson is, in the high mountains, people can be very out of it, more likely to rush, sometimes make really bad moves, and you need to recognize that. Embarrassingly enough,
Bro, like I'm getting nervous just watching this high ass shit.
I was actually going to make this segment
Bullshit
about
about
how I
what?
didn't say anything to these climbers who were stepping on the fixed rope with their crampons, which can potentially damage them. But then later on in the footage, I realized I literally did this myself by accident. Catching unsafe practices by paying attention to everybody around you in the area, including yourself, can save someone's life. Alright, so the fourth mistake I made while on Mount Everest sounds extremely embarrassing, but I can assure you it had serious consequences, and that was I ate too much fiber. Now,
You had the shit is what you're telling me? You had the shit?
one of my go-to snacks to bring on climbs, such as Everest, are bars, natural bars with fruits and nuts. So basically just a fiber slot bar. The reason I like them so much is because of their natural source of carbohydrate, protein, and fat. But when you are eating 4 or 5 of those Johns a day, and each one has 5 grams of fiber each, you best believe you're going to be on the toilet. This is what the bathroom looks like at Camp 2 on Everest, and with all of the fiber paired with the indigestion I experienced at altitude, I was absolutely fighting for my life inside of that thing. It doesn't get any better, as once you are at Camp 3 and Camp 4, you have to go number 2 out in the open into bags like this, and then you have to bring them back down with you. Now, while we are on the topic of food, something that is extremely important to me and essential for my recovery is getting sufficient protein. And one of the ways I've been doing that is with the sponsor of today's video, David.
Good
Thank you,
ad,
David,
brother.
for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to my stupid mistakes. Next up, this mistake almost ended my entire expedition and made for one of the hardest days of my entire life. So as we just talked about, there are a ton of people climbing Mount Everest. I mean, base camp ends up being a city, which means there are a lot of germs that end up getting spread around. But here's the thing, I went the first 30 days of the trip without getting sick, which just reinforced my biases that hand sanitizer is nasty chemicals.
How many days does it take to get up Mount Everest? 2 to 3 months. It takes like 3 months to get up the full fucking mountain. That's fucking crazy.
I'm just built different. So then on day 34, it's the moment we've all been waiting for. We are leaving base camp to finally head for the summit. And what do you know, I just get absolutely smacked.
I'm not feeling that great.
Midway through the Khumbu icefall, I started to feel super fatigued and ill, and by the time we were approaching Camp 2, I am taking the slowest, measly steps ever to prevent myself from vomiting. Fortunately, with a couple rest days at Camp 2, I ended up feeling good enough to go to the summit, but I honestly was so close to going back down due to my body giving up on me. Now, before going into the mountains, what is some gear that you can absolutely not forget? And if you do, it can be fatal. Maybe your crampons, maybe your jackets. Well, what about your ice axe on the summit day of Mount Everest? Yeah, this is one of the worst from me, and I actually had no clue that I had left my ice axe in our camp until we had gotten back from the summit. Now here's my defense. It is really easy to forget the importance of your ice axe on a mountain like Everest, especially from the standard routes, which sounds outrageous. This is because the entire route is fixed with ropes, and if you ever fall, you will only fall on the ropes, so therefore you never actually have your ice axe out. The only time you would use your ice axe and why you need to bring it up with you on summit day is if for some reason the ropes got cut. If there are no ropes to attach you to the mountain, if you fall, you have to stop yourself from sliding with an ice axe, or else you're going to tumble 9,000 feet into China. So having your ice axe with you on Mount Everest is more so a worst case scenario tool, but of course the fact that I did not have mine with me means I was not prepared for a worst case scenario, which is not good.
Nigga, you're telling me it's 20 y'all just chilling up there?
Make it a habit that whenever you are leaving camp, make sure to go through a gear rundown with your partner. Think of things like food, water, crampons, helmet, ice axe, and that way you can prevent a lot of inconvenient or fatal situations. Alright, so cutting corners is something you should never do in the mountains, because a single second saved by skipping a step can result in extreme consequences. As I've just talked about, there are fixed ropes put in by Sherpas that allow you to ascend and descend Mount Everest safely. On the descent, you can lower yourself with a device called a figure 8, which mitigates any risk of falling while descending as long as it's set up properly. Unfortunately, time is against you in the mountains, so when the terrain isn't super difficult, we use a technique called arm wrapping. This is where you walk down the mountain with the ropes wrapped through your arms, essentially creating controllable friction so you can lower yourself. While you are arm wrapping, you are supposed to have 2 carabiners, just like this, attached to the rope at the same time. So that way, even if you fall while transitioning anchors, you are still attached to the mountain and its ropes. As you can guess where this is going, after my summit, I was overconfident, negligent, and I only had 1 carabiner attached while I was arm wrapping to try and save time. I would indeed just slap myself for this one because it is taking an unnecessary risk. Because if for some reason I slipped while transitioning ropes, there would be nothing stopping me from falling thousands of feet. As I've been in the mountains more, I've learned that you just cannot take shortcuts like this because one's survival in the mountains is entirely dependent on how well they mitigate.
Bro, I will never climb a mountain.
So this last mistake is one of the worst for multiple reasons, and I'm honestly pretty lucky to have gotten away with survival in every instance this happened. As you've probably noticed, a primary cause of a lot of these mistakes was ignorance, because ignorance is bliss. And if you are not well educated and knowledgeable about certain risks, then you're not going to be aware of their ability to actually happen. Anyways, one of the most dangerous parts of
I would never be
Mount
climbing no
Everest,
Mount
in my
Everest, my
opinion,
nigga.
is the Khumbu Icefall, which is at the very start of the route. The Khumbu Icefall is essentially a frozen glacier that is always moving, and this constant flow of ice creates these towering seracs that you sometimes have to cross beneath. While it is one of the most beautiful places on the planet, these seracs actually can collapse randomly and have been the cause of countless tragedies throughout Everest climbing history. There are two ways to mitigate the risk when you are dealing with hazards such as serac collapses, and that is either never go there to begin with, or spend as little time as possible in the hazard zone. I wish I could roundhouse kick myself in the jaw for how unserious and just nonchalant I was while moving through the Khumbu icefall. Of course, I was aware that these seracs can collapse sometimes and have been the cause of many tragedies, but my overall ignorance on the matter led me to walk through without the urgency I should have had. Knowing what I now know about these objective hazards and my own risk tolerance, you best believe I am going to be hustling through any section of the mountain that is prone to collapse, even if it means I have to slow down on the safer sections. If you want to spend a lot of time in the mountains and live, you have to be extremely mindful and aware of all of the risks that are around you, and on Everest I just don't think I was, and I find that pretty irresponsible. Anyways, those are all the mistakes I made while climbing Mount Everest, and some of the knowledge that I will definitely be applying to my upcoming climb without oxygen this March. If you want...
Hey, you'll never catch me climbing Everest, nigga. Shit. Hell no. Hey man, but we been on 3 hours. We been on stream 3 hours, man. Shout out to y'all, man. I love y'all.